I'm Dr. Pilar Calva from Mexico. I'm in the context of the March for Life in Zurich, Switzerland. I'm a physician and then I'm a geneticist. I studied under the guidance of Professor Jerome Lejeune. He was a great scientist who discovered the cause of Down syndrome, and he was also a great pro-lifer. He knew he had to defend life because his discovery, knowing the cause of Down syndrome at trisomy 21, was misused to make prenatal diagnosis and eliminate through abortions these patients. So he committed to what is the duty of all doctors, that is to defend the life of all the patients. So I studied under his guidance. So I would like to explain something that is discussed in ideological and false terms that we do not know when life begins. And many legislations make votations on that subject. And that is not true science. We can see whatever I explain here in a simple way in medical books with scientific facts. I would say you can see any embryology books. The embryology is a science, part of medicine, that studies the development of a human being, that means of a patient, of a doctor, before he is born. So we are speaking already about the patient, and we consider the embryological development starts once the embryo, the egg cell and the sperm cell fuse. That moment is called conception. So what happens in conception is what I'm going to explain. First of all, we have to remember that all living beings have a genetic material. This genetic material is in the DNA. The DNA and the RNA are the genetic structures where it is said to which species do I belong, and at the same time it says that we are unique, irrepeatable, that means individual in this species. For example, I can have a very big nose. It's my only nose. Nobody else has a nose like mine. But it's not the trunk of an elephant. It's a human nose because I have a human genetic material. We have all our material in every one of our billions of cells inside the nucleus. The genes are the small instructions written on DNA that say different characteristics. For example, the color of the eyes, the way your hair. It can also have structural functions. For example, we have a gene to produce a protein that's very necessary for bones. That's called collagen. Then we have another gene that speaks about functional genes. That means, for example, the insulin to be able to put sugar inside our body. So these genes are all, these instructions are all in small books that are called chromosomes. Us human beings, we all have 23 pairs of these chromosomes. That means 46 chromosomes. We have a pair because we receive one number 1 from our dad and the other number 1 from our mom. One number 21 from our mom, 121 from our dad. And on the 23rd pair of chromosomes, if we are women, and we are women since conception until we die, we will have 2 X chromosomes. And a man will have in its billions of cells a very big chromosome, an X, and a tiny one that's a Y. So all our cells have all our genetic material that almost doesn't change in the time. So the genome is there, it's like a printed book. It doesn't change with time. There's a very new discovery that even helps us more understand that it's in conception and not in another moment, that is the epigenetics. Epigenetics, going back to the example of the books, is as if you take a pencil, a colored pencil, and then a marker, and then you mark in pink or in yellow the important things of a page. That can be changed. If I read the same book 2 years afterwards, maybe I will underline another thing. the book doesn't change, but I can change whatever I mark. That is epigenetics, and that's the imprinting. The imprinting means that it can be changed, and it's really chemical things that happen, methylation, phosphorylation, and we know that can change with time. Something that is incredible in this, the beginning of life, is that the men's gamete, that means the men's sexual cell, that's a sperm cell, has a different imprinting than the egg cell. And when they join or fuse in conception, the imprinting changes, as if chemically it was telling us, I'm not anymore a cell. I'm not anymore a sperm cell or an egg cell. I'm something different. And here it's someone different. So it's incredible because the imprinting has even demonstrated much more this. Two things happen when sex cells are formed, when gametes are formed. One is, the process is we start with a cell that has 46 chromosomes, and this cell will divide, but dividing to have its genetic material. That's different from the mitosis, for example, what happens in our skin cells, that we have at 46 skin cells, and then we will produce more 46 skin cells. Here, no. We start from a 46 cell, and then we will reduce the number of chromosomes through a process that calls meiosis. Meios means half. Two very important scientific things happen there that one can read in any chemistry book, in any biochemistry book, in any genetics book. That's science. So those who believe that nothing is said that we don't know, I would invite them to study, because everything is in science. So what happens? First, the two number ones of the mom put strictly very together, because they start interchanging small parts. That is called the crossing over. So the moms gives the same amount of chromosome to the dad, and the dad's part comes to the mom. It's like we make a mixture of both the maternal and the paternal chromosome. Why? Because at the end, in this cell will be only one. That's why we can have things from our dad's side, or from his paternal and his maternal side. How many crossing overs does it happen? There are between 3 to 8 crossing overs in each pair of chromosomes, and we have 23 pair of chromosomes. Let's make an average of 5, so it will be an exponential of 23 up to 5. That means 23 plus 23, and then that number you will multiply by the result. But it's even more, because crossing over sometimes it's not always in the exactly same place. Sometimes we have paternal, maternal, and paternal. Others paternal, maternal, and no other. So it's in another side. And the second thing that happens during meiosis, it's a law. It's one of Gregor Mendel's law. Gregor Mendel is considered the father of the genetics because he gave the laws of inheritance. When there is a law in any natural science, it's a knowledge that's immutable. That means it will not change. So this is the law of segregation. We have the mother's chromosome, let's imagine it's pink, with small parts of the dad's chromosome. Let's imagine it's blue. So we have a pink chromosome with some patches of blue. And we have the blue one with the same patches of pink. And then there's a moment in which the pink chromosome will go to the cell of the left and the blue one to the right. And it's by choice. You put a coin in the air and you say, this one goes here and this one goes here. When you go to number 2, it's not necessarily the pink one that will go as the other that was a pink one. Again, you throw this coin to the air, and it could be the pink or it could be the blue. So how many combinations can we make because of the first law of Gregor Mendel of the meiosis of the segregation? We can make up to 23 square because we have two possibilities. That means 569 combinations. Then if we combine segregation and crossing over, we can get, it's a difficult calculation made by pure mathematics, and we can make up to 1 trillion different combinations. So it's incredible because a woman can make 1 trillion combinations of her own genetic material. And the most, she will ovulate 500 times in her life because it's once every month. We have to take off the pregnancies and etc., but suppose there's no pregnancy. And she's fertile maybe 40 years. So it will be no more than 500. She has a genetic combination for every exo. Now imagine the husband. It's the same thing. The husband can make 1 trillion different chromosomes, different sperm cells. A spouse, in this great act of love, the greatest act of love between spouses, puts in the body of the mother around 350 million sperm cells, up to 500 million sperm cells. We have enough for them to be different. So what happens in conception? Conception is defined as the fusion of the sperm cell and the egg cell. Conception is a medical term. And so 1 trillion per 1 trillion combinations, the possibility that we find the same combination is 1 exabillion chromosomes, exabillion chances. So in theory, it's not impossible, but in the practice, it's impossible. So the genetic material that you find in this new cell, that one can see, oh, it's only a cell, and I see it's a human cell because it has 46 chromosomes. But if we go to genomics, we go to epigenetics, that's the newest science in medicine, we can see that the genetic material is a new combination between 1 trillion and 1 trillion. It's a combination that will not be repeated because we would have to play again the 1 trillion combinations. So in one word, it's an individual combination. Individual, that means that it has never happened and it will never happen again. Conclusion, it's a human being. In Spanish, it's very easy. We say it's an individual human. Okay? That's the first thing. Even in identical twins, that's monozygote twins, just 1 egg cell and 1 sperm cell, this is true at that moment. Monozygotic twins have a unique conception. They have a material. But individual doesn't mean that it will not divide. If there are twins or not, this 1 egg cell embryo, human embryo, it's already a baby, it's already my patient, it's a Swiss citizenship that the Swiss law should protect, has its peculiar genetic material. And then, in some cases, on the 3 first days, it divides into 2 persons, but their beginning of life was individual. Okay? The second evidence is this genetic material that we have in the moment of conception makes an autonomous development. That means there's already all the material of the human symphony. We just have to let this material express itself. It's like we have a cassette with a marvelous human symphony. We need a cassette player to put it and hear the symphony. It's the same. Where do we see this? In all embryology books. We know, for example, on day 21, a very simple heart will beat. It's just a tube. But with the time, we will make this marvelous heart with their 4 cavities, very particular. Nobody has a heart the same as the other. We all have human hearts, but each one has a different individual heart. And this development is so autonomous that today, very sadly and unethically, we can start life in a cold glass dish. Because usually it starts in the warm fallopian tube of a mom, okay? But we can see life in the lab. And the mom can be kilometers away or on another continent, and life continues to happen. And we know it's alive because it reproduces. This one-cell embryo doubles the size of its body, of his or her body, because now he has a 2-cell body. On the 48th, he'll have a body with 4 cells, etc. So the development is autonomous. There is reproduction. This embryo, since very, very tiny, eats. He doesn't eat through a mouth and a digestive tube because it's not the time. So we eat as amoebas. We eat by osmosis from those cells that surround the egg cell, and when there's an in vitro fertilization in the glass, they put nutrients for the baby because we need to put in energy, ATPs, because this little baby already breathes. Why do we know that this baby breathes? Because they do synthesis of proteins to make all the organelles, to have the reproduction of the DNA, to make the membrane, the nuclear membrane and the cellular membrane. So we know there is a respiratory function, very simple, set by a Nobel Prize who's called Krebs. So we know that Krebs cycle means there's respiration. So this tiny, peculiar human being, and he's not only a human being, he's the son of Mr. Smith and Mrs. Watson, because Mr. Smith gave its genetic material and Mrs. Watson gave hers. So it's not part of the body of the mom, because all my body has my same genetic material. The cell of my eye has the same genetic material as my thumb. I know the thumb is part of my body, not only because it is stuck to me. If they cut my thumb, I know it is mine because it has the same genetic material as the rest. But this newly conceived baby has a different genetic material. Of course, he or she has 50% of the genetic material as the mom, but the other 50% the mother doesn't recognize. So it's false, it's ideological to say that it's part of their body. And the third evidence is that it's a continuous process. If we are not human beings since conception, there is no moment where there is a genetic change that we could scientifically affirm, like for example, oh, it's not a human being until it implants. So then on day 14, ping, it turns to be a human being. I would ask 2 questions to those ideologies, because it's not scientific, that say that. The first question would be, I do not doubt, books do not doubt, scientific books, that it's a human being, because that's a peculiar human being, a unique genetic material. But if you consider it's not a human being, tell me to what species is it? Because if it is human, you would have to tell me what species is it. And the second question is even more difficult to answer and would have no answer. Let's say it's from the species of a cuchicuacino, a new species, okay? And then suddenly on day 14, they consider it starts to be human. That is considered in biology evolution. Evolution, the theory of evolution, cannot be sustained because in the million of years between the primate, the monkey, that's so close to us, but it's at the same time so far to us, because millions of years cannot explain the genetic changes. So this will be a case. In 14 days, what was not human turns into human. So no, there's a development that it's a continuous. There's never any jump on genetic material. And the falsest of all is to try to say that a human capacity defines you to be a human. Feeling to feel does not make you be part or be human. It's an expression of your humanity. Being able to think, to have brain waves, it's an expression of humanity. But there will be patients that will never express because maybe they don't have a brain. They have severe genetic things. Maybe they were very intelligent, but they are now in a coma, profound coma. They do not express brain waves, but they are still human. So don't remember always, all these things, feeling, heartbeat, brain waves, or neurological waves, are only an expression of humanity. But they do not define us as human beings. A dog who barks, the barking of a dog is an expression that what is coming is a dog. But if the dog is sleeping and he doesn't bark, I do not say, oh, what is it? I don't know what it is. I say, well, it's a sleeping dog. So it's the same. Thinking, rational activities are an expression that you are a human being. Only human beings who have a human genetic material will be able to do that. But there can be a human being that doesn't do it, but continues to be a human being. Thank you very much.